a screamer to left. Hardly any launch angle at all. And Bobby's first hit in August is a home run. And the Royals have their biggest lead of the night.
What a nice swing.
I don't know how many ballparks can hold that one or this one, and that's Vinny's second of the night. Vinny Pasquantino has 2 home runs and 4 RBIs. Popped up. Junior is there, and the Royals begin August with a win. Vinny Pasquantino has his first big league multi-home run game. Bobby Witt Jr. hit a home run and drove in 2 tonight and scored a couple of runs. And Matt Quatrero's team is 4-0 on this trip.
Yeah, Vinny's a run producer, and he's had some good games for us, especially lately. You know, following up at the homer yesterday, 2 today is really nice to see from him. Anytime we get production, regardless of who it's from or where in the order, it's a plus. And so, you know, Bobby was in his mini slump, 0 for 2 before he hit the homer and the double. So incredible. That home run was really incredible. I did not think that was a home run. We're down pretty low, so it's hard to tell. But for that ball to go out at that trajectory was pretty remarkable.
Good morning, Kansas City. This is New Day with SSJ on Sports Radio 810 WHB. It's Friday, August 2nd, 2024. Stephen St. John here with Jake Gutierrez and also you the intern. We're going to be joined by Stan Weber coming up at around 6:30. Also, we'll get our camp report from Pete Sweeney from Arrowhead Pride at 7:30. Jeff Penner will give us a weekend forecast at 8 o'clock. I wonder what that forecast will hold. I wonder what that forecast will tell us. Let me guess, it's going to be hot. Well,
and humid.
Thanks. Then at 8:05, we'll check in with the head coach of the Kansas City Goats, Dorsey Golston III. The Goats have a playoff game this Saturday night, and once again, it's going to be a part of the Inside Out series. And there's you the intern, making an appearance on the stream. But the Goats will be playing at St. Pius X High School. Tickets available now, kcgoats.com. And we were there last week for the first Inside Out game, indoor football outside. And let me tell you something, it was a blast. The St. Pius football stadium is beautiful anyway. And they've done so much to upgrade it, to renovate it with, you know, new turf and new event center and new video board and just everything new and beautiful. And I was really curious to see how they were going to set it up. And they pulled it off, and it was awesome. And we were right there. My dad had a group of, this is going to sound very bizarre, but my dad had a group of like 12 former police officers and veterans that went with him to the game. Because for some reason at this stage in his life, my dad hangs out with former police officers.
Quite the turn.
And veterans. You know, because, well, yes. What my dad was is a Vietnam veteran.
Yes,
He was in
that makes sense.
in the Navy for 3 years. But then, of course, he was on the wrong side of the law.
He got right.
And spent 8.5 years in the federal pen. But now he's become a friend to the police. And he hangs out with, you know, Gary Jenkins, don't you?
Yeah. Great guy.
Yeah. A film. Once again, you the intern, making an appearance.
Somehow that printer's out of any other ink than blue, so.
I love it.
It's
good.
You got to run down in blue.
It's great.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. A little bit of a change, huh?
Yeah. It's blue for the goats.
So, Gary's a podcast producer and host of the Gangland Wire crime stories. Made a couple of documentaries. One that I voiced I voiced a documentary about political corruption, the history of political corruption in Kansas City and
he's been in here
20s, 30s, 40s. Yeah.
You had him on the show, and then he's come in here and just hung out.
Yep.
A couple times.
And then he made a couple of small movies where I had small roles in. One was.
Were you in the trunk?
That was originally supposed to be in the trunk, but then the roles were switched to where I was one putting somebody in the trunk. I had a scene with my dad. Anyway, and so Gary and my dad became friends because Gary asked my dad to be on his podcast. And they found out that at one time Gary was in charge of surveillance of my dad in a different lifetime, right? So, but now they're friends.
Running some taps.
And my dad has made friends. He had a group of 12 that he wanted to take to the football game. And so, that was a group of 14. And so I set that up, and they had a blast. And we're going to give away tickets to the Goats game in the 8 o'clock hour, if you want to do that. And it really was fun. And so it's going to be the playoffs, and if they win on Saturday night, they advance to the championship game. All right? What do you think the name of the championship game is? See if you can guess.
The Arena Bowl.
No. Can't do that.
No.
Taken.
Enlighten me.
Put more effort into that. Arena Mania 1.
Oh.
Yeah, see?
Nice. Oh.
So,
that's a good name.
The Goats are taking on the Iowa Woo! And they'll face the winner of the Duluth Harbor Monsters and the Ozarks Lunkers. So, let's see what happens then, huh? So we'll talk to the coach about that. Then we'll talk to Mike McFarland, former Royals catcher. He'll be on with us at 8:30. And then, and by the way, yesterday when we discussed the show, after yesterday's show, I told you Grant Hart would be on the phone.
Yeah, no.
I just, you know, you go, he'll be in studio. I go, Willie? Well, he was in studio last week. I said, that has nothing to do with this week. And so then where is he?
I totally jinxed it. He's on the phone.
Yeah, but where is he?
I don't have any idea. I just asked him.
When does the traveling stop for football, in your opinion?
I mean, I would think that soon. Because he told me he was going to be out in July, and then he's back in August. No. And today, I look at the calendar. Yep. I mean, I'll show you the text message.
Not back in August.
No. He said, I'm out in July. Yet he was back last week when you were up at camp.
Yeah.
And now he's gone again.
Maybe it's me.
No.
Might be.
Might be.
Well, the Royals won again.
How about them Royals?
Yeah. They beat the Detroit Tigers 7-1. Seth Lugo goes 8 innings, only gives up 4 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. Win number 13 drops the ERA down to 2.57, and then Will Smith chipped in with a scoreless inning. But the offensive stars, stop me if you've heard this one before, Bobby Witt Jr. was 2 for 4 with 2 more runs scored, 2 more ribbies, another home run, another walk. And so now he's hitting 350. And now his on base is 398.
You ever heard of that one, Stan?
And now his slug is 604. And now his OPS is over 1,000. And we're in August. MVP. But he wasn't the biggest offensive star of the game. And when we talked to Mike Boddicker about what the Royals did and didn't do at the trade deadline, we all agreed that they did good work to bring in 3 arms. When you bring in a 5th starter and you bring in 2 high leverage bullpen arms, you've done work. Because as we've seen, and just look around at the rest of the trades that were made leading up to the trade deadline, it's expensive to get bullpen arms. It's easier to get a starting pitcher nowadays. It just is. Like bullpen arms, the price tag is through the roof. And for the and we it's TBD, right? To be determined how successful those pitchers will be this season down the stretch. But it's not all about this season because they're not rental players. You'll have Hunter Harvey next year, and you'll have Lucas Erceg through 2029. But it's very difficult to add 2 high leverage arms like the Royals did. They pulled it off, and they did it without giving up too much, in my opinion. They did it. Did they trade a couple of prospects that they wanted to hold on to? Yes. Did they trade any blue chippers that they had on their list that they wanted to keep? Like, no. The only way we trade these guys or one of these guys if it's really something special. They didn't have to tap into that. And they utilized the draft pick as well. And so they pulled that off. And they also added an upgraded 5th starter, at least for now, Michael Lorenzen. And nothing against Marsh, but at this point in their careers, Lorenzen's a little bit of an upgrade, and he's a veteran. And you have some versatility with him, and you can put him in the bullpen if you need to because he's an experienced reliever as well. But you add 3 arms like that become your 5th starter, and let's just say, whatever, 7th inning guy, 8th inning guy. 8th inning guy, 9th inning guy, whatever. Any of those roles that you got 2 guys that come in and can step into those roles, man, you've done really good work. And then you add a bench bat with some cheap power. 18 home runs off the bench. Right-handed power from Paul DeYoung. They didn't get the outfielder that we thought they would get. They didn't get the outfielder that they were pursuing. And so when we sat and talked about this with Mike Boddicker and tried to analyze what they did and what they didn't do leading up to the trade deadline, I just feel like they ran out of tradable assets, attractive tradable assets that they would that they would legitimately trade in this situation, and they couldn't get everything on the shopping list. And they decided for what the price would be that they needed to focus on the bullpen, which I agree with because the bullpen was falling apart. The bullpen, and guess what? The bullpen still might be the thing that keeps the team from making the playoffs. It could be, but they just didn't sit there and watch it happen. They tried to address it. But at the time, we still are somewhat concerned about the bullpen, right? take Harvey and Urseg away from it, then you're like, oh my God, no.
Right.
What now?
You almost are feeling hopeless.
Right? But that's you have some hope because of those two guys.
Absolutely.
And you have some hope that, okay, maybe Lorenzen goes on a hot stretch like he did in the first half of last year, which led him to being an attractive trade target for the Phillies. You know, and he threw a no-hitter last year. Let him he's shown he can get hot. Let him get hot for a stretch of 5 or 6 starts and see what that does for you. But as I told Mike, I said, look, this is did they want to add an outfielder? Sure they did. Couldn't do it. And maybe they did knock on a couple of doors. What did Scott Sharp tell us? There was a list of about 4 or 5 guys, bats, that they were looking at, and that's the only one that could make it happen with Paul DeYoung. And so they probably did go after an outfielder or two and couldn't make it happen, or maybe that guy was traded somewhere else in a better deal for that specific team. But what the Royals are banking on in this second half is the additions to the bullpen, the upgrade 5th starter, and some of the young offensive players that have underperformed in the first half are going to turn things around and help Bobby Witt Jr. carry this team offensively. And one of those guys that they're betting on is Vinny Pasquantino. Because when Vinny came up, I did not believe him to be just another guy. I thought he was going to be a building block. I still think he can be a building block. I know J.J. Piccolo thinks he could be a building block. He's a guy that they could have had a good starting pitcher from the Marlins for Vinny Pasquantino in the offseason, and they said no. They're holding on to Vinny. They believe in Vinny. And there's a lot of reasons why they should believe in Vinny. And he's the kind of guy, if he gets things going, if he gets hot, he is the kind of hitter that can help carry this team.
He's bringing power.
And if Bobby Witt Jr. and Vinny Pasquantino are hot at the same time, which it appears they are right now, look out. This is what you get. This is exactly what you get. And so what has Vinny done recently? Last night he hit 2 home runs, drove in 4. Night before he hit a home run and drove in 3. Night before he drove in 2. So last 3 games, 9 ribbies. He's driven in 9 runs in the last 3 games. I told you his batting average was .231 on June 24th. .231 on June 24th. After last night's outburst, it's up to .264. Now we're starting to get to the level that we expected him to be at. His on-base percentage has obviously gone up as well. It's getting closer to being, acceptable. Not even close to what I expected. He was an on-base guy in the minors, but it's creeping up. The slugging percentage is creeping up. And so over the last 21 days, Pasquantino's hitting .338 with a .508 slug. Over the last 2 weeks, he's hitting .377 with a .585 slug. Over the last week, he's hitting .333 with a .667 slug for an OPS of .989. He got 76 runs driven in. He's gonna drive in over 100. And he's up to 14 home runs right now. His numbers are going to look pretty damn good when it's all said and done. It's been a slow, steady climb for Vinny. And he's had some cold stretches in there. Trust me, we've seen it. But he's one of the guys they're betting on that elevates his offensive game, and it's happening. The other guy, Michael Garcia. That's another guy that they believed in. That's another guy that they didn't want to talk about in trade, and that's another guy that's too talented to continue to not produce and to not be more of an offensive threat. And he's getting there. Right? Over the last 21 days, hitting 291, Jake. The on base can be better. The slug can be better. But he's been a demon on the base paths. What's he up to now? He stole 2 bases last night. Up to 27 steals. Feels like maybe he's starting to come around. I mean, look, you'll take that. If he's hitting, over the past month, he's hitting like, 280, 290. Threading the base paths, get that on-base percentage up. That's who they're betting on. Michael Massey, come on down. You're part of that group. MJ Melendez, you're that's more kind of a hope and a wish there. But at least we're looking at young players with upside that theoretically could turn things around and help carry this offense. You've got a superstar that's the best player in baseball right now. And he's an offensive force. You've got Salvi, who when Salvi gets hot, he can help carry the offense. Vinny Pasquantino is there right now. Vinny on fire. But they're banking on some other young players that are going to turn things around in the second half, and hopefully we saw a sampling of that last night. And, oh, by the way, Bobby Witt Jr., just keep being the MVP. Just keep playing and hitting out of your mind. That will lead the Royals into the postseason. All right?
Yes, sir.
And it doesn't hurt when Lugo goes out and just shuts everyone down, too, by the way. Doesn't hurt when Brady Singer and Reagans and Lugo are studs. And Waka, too. And then, oh, by the way, they upgraded their 5th starter, Lorenzen.
How about those Royals?
That's what I mean. Let him go through a nice 5 or 6 game stretch. Let's go. Feeling good. Feeling optimistic. What's that? Do I? I'm starting to smell the postseason for the Royals. And I like what it smells like.
Jumped the Twins last night.
I think that's the postseason.
Second wild card spot now. Half game above the Twins.
I also ate Joe's Kansas City barbecue last night, so I might still be smelling that. So
some ribs,
which actually kind of smells like the postseason.
Yeah,
oddly enough.
Yeah, it does. We
will be right back after this on Sports Radio 810 WHP. Welcome back to New Day with SSJ on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Stephen St. John now joined by Stan Weber. Good morning, Stan. How are you?
I'm well. Good morning.
Get me to the finish line, Stan.
Is this the last day before vacation for Stephen St. John?
Yes. It's so weird, man. I didn't think it would affect me like this, but like every year for 2.5 decades, I've taken my vacation in conjunction somehow with 4th of July, either the week leading up to it or the week after, just in that, and it came and went, I was like, but we did get a couple of days off, so that was pretty nice. But it's just, you know what I mean? I'm just thrown off by everything. And so I was telling Jake the other day, I went to camp a week early and a day earlier than I normally go. And I was like, every day at camp, I didn't know what day it was. And I was just confused. And that's kind of like my life here. But then, now I've been waiting for this time off with my family. And it's a month late, so I'm ready for it.
You got senioritis.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good to go. I'm ready to roll, baby. So, yeah, we're hitting the road tomorrow morning. It's here. I should pack.
Bye-bye.
I should probably pack.
So you'll be gone from Saturday?
We're going to come back Thursday.
Okay.
Because I don't like coming back and then having to go to the work the next day. That's too discombobulated and everything else. So we're going to come back Thursday. But also, like I told the girls, with the idea that, hey, if, because we're going to drive up there, we want to get up there. But coming back, as many times as we want to stop, I told Lebo perhaps I could pull a Danny Klingscale and drive for 3 hours and then get another hotel, and stay overnight. Who knows what could happen? But I want to give myself that buffer zone, where I could just
integration time.
Yeah, I don't want to be. I've like tried to, I've left Chicago Sunday morning and have to be at work the next day, and I'm like driving. The whole time it just ruins the ride home. I don't want to do that, and so we're just gonna have fun.
Everyone has their different travel methodologies.
Yeah.
Robert Lipson is the most famous K-State traveling fan in the world. He was there before I went to college. He was already a super fan, and he still is. And you'll see him holding up Big 12 signs or "We own the state." Most people know
him at Sports Radio 810.
Yeah, once he gets to know you and feels comfortable, he'll just walk in and act like he owns the place, very innocently, but it leads to one of the funny stories. So we're getting ready for college game day, and so I call down to Bob Stoops. He's the head coach of Oklahoma. Talk to his secretary. She goes, "Just a second." Boom. Bob puts me on speakerphone in his office. Said, "Hey, I'm on speakerphone. Stan, good to hear from you." I said, "Hey, want to get this interview done for college game day." He goes, "You'll never guess who's in my office right now." And it was Robert. Robert just walks right in and acts like he owns the place because he knows Bob Stoops.
Yeah,
so he goes right
K-State,
into the head coach and
That's right.
starts talking to him. And he was on his way because K-State was playing further in Texas. So he was in Oklahoma stopping by. Many broadcasters in the Big 12 that he gets to know. He'll just walk right in and have a conversation with them on his trip. So he reminds me, you talked about Danny Klingscale and his adventures. He wrote a book about his travels.
That's right.
So it wasn't just kind of like Jake, right? Did you sign a copy of that book for me?
Yep, it's in the mail.
Jake,
I forgot to ask you about that since I'm still, my mind's still spinning that you haven't watched one of the Super Bowls during your life when you were alive.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
That doesn't make any sense. That Tampa versus Kansas City
makes all the sense.
Now it does, but I mean, since they've won games, you ought to be able to go back and put that spot in history back into your mind. So anyway,
why mess with it?
I hadn't asked you about your book.
I've never seen the Chiefs lose in the Super Bowl.
Will you sign a copy of the book for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Right after your segment.
Okay, Danny. So Danny wrote a book, but Robert, he will have a travel plan where if K-State is playing a football game in conference, and man, this conference is going from sea to shining sea almost.
A little different now.
He'll get to that road game. If it's a conference football game, he's going to get there. So however long it takes him to drive. So one time, someone asked Robert, and I heard about this story, and they said, well, games in Colorado and Boulder, what's your traveling schedule? And he said, well, I'm leaving on Thursday and heading over and staying with this friend, which a lot of these guys are my old football buddies. Literally, guys that I played football with are such good friends with Robert because he's allowed to walk in our locker room, watch all the practice, truly friends. He knows where he can stay with them. So he said, yeah, I'm going to go stay with him. They go, okay, yeah, great. How far away does he live? Hour 45.
Right.
So he would start his trip and go, and then he would drive another, whatever was convenient. So sometimes he's driving forever, and sometimes he's driving for almost no time at all. It makes no sense to someone who's thinking about it. So I understand if someone on your way home says time to stop, let's check that out. I know a couple of guys, Robert and Danny, that will be willing to do that.
I'm just going to let them decide. You tell me when to stop, we'll stop. I'm going to just turn off my brain and let the...
You could just stop and read a chapter of the book.
Yeah, let the girls guide me home, which that's going to be dangerous.
Let them run around a little bit and read a chapter of Jake's book.
Yeah, well...
The audio version.
Right. You can, we'll just actually we'll call him, put him on speakerphone.
I'll just start reading it.
And it'll be the audio version.
Chapter 1.
Okay, so we got to get into I want to shockingly I want to mention some more fun facts about Bobby Witt Jr.
Is this fun or what?
This is unbelievable, Stan. And so yesterday I wish that I would have had this when Gehrig Dieter was in studio, because Gehrig Dieter is named after Lou Gehrig. But Optastats, which is an excellent follow on X, and gives great statistical analysis and fun facts like this, they tweeted out this picture of side-by-side of Bobby Witt Jr. and Lou Gehrig, and it says, Bobby Witt Jr. of the Royals finished July with 44 hits and a .489 batting average. The last Major League player with at least that many hits and that high of a batting average in a calendar month was Lou Gehrig in June of 1930, when he had 55 hits and a .495 average. And so this is like every time now we talk about something that Bobby Witt Jr. does, then you talk about, has it been done since 1930? Has it been done since George Brett? Has it? And then you look at the list of, joins a group of Hall of Famer, legend, Hall of Famer, legend. It's unbelievable. It's the highest batting average in a calendar month with a minimum of 80 plate appearances, the fourth highest batting average since 1931. And who's third? George Brett in July of 1980 on his way to hitting .390.
Waving his cap when he's sitting on second base. That boy is playing some ball, huh?
But when we kid about this, but when we say I have never seen anything like this, I have seen something like it because I watched George Brett. But for people that in Kansas City that didn't get a chance to watch George Brett, they've never seen anything like this. They haven't. And I'm not saying he's exactly like Brett, because George Brett, and that's the great thing about George Brett, again, I'll say it, he was this level hot in the postseason.
I have never seen anything in my life.
A career OPS of over 1,000 in the postseason. So imagine how hot Bobby Witt Jr. is right now. That was what George Brett was all the time in the postseason. And that's what made him, that's next level. Like, if Bobby Witt Jr. goes and does this in over 40 career playoff games, that's how you get to George Brett status.
And you got to do it year after year after year.
But nobody is...
But what he's doing right now is off the charts.
He's in 350 now.
Yeah.
With power and with speed and with great defense and with unbelievable base running. What doesn't he do great? He's great at everything.
I know.
It's unbelievable.
It reminds me, you mentioned we were seeing some of what George Brett did, and we're seeing some of what Willie Wilson did, all in the same guy, because the other night he had 2 hits in maybe 3 or 4 opportunities, because they're walking him a lot, right? He had 1 or 2 walks, and he's either 2 of 3 or 2 of 4 in a game where he didn't rip the ball. Guess what? 2 infield singles that weren't even close. That's Willie Wilson like. Ball gets past the pitcher, and it's not hit too hard. He's on first base, no chance
of getting him out. And guess what? They keep putting him on base. Vinny Pasquantino, that's why it's such a big deal that he's hot right now. He's got 9 ribbies in his last 3 games. Hit 2 more home runs last night. And if he gets hot like that, well, then
Salvador Perez is coming up after him, who has improved his hitting style tremendously. He strikes out enough, right? But that's Major League Baseball today. But to see Salvi place the ball, like hitting it over the shortstop and placing it like he's Corey Yastrzemski or Wade Boggs or someone like that goes, okay, here's a single. It's amazing to watch those three guys bat. And then they're always in high leverage situations because if you go to the bottom of the batting order and mention some of those hitting averages, their batting average is so low. It's all or nothing. I've never seen anything like it. Sometimes when you start winning like this, the momentum goes throughout the lineup. But this is more like when you get to the top of the lineup, you better be watching the Royals play.
Right.
And when it gets toward the bottom, you could just go to sleep because they're keeping the pitcher in a groove by getting out quickly and getting the pitcher back out there. It's amazing that all the run production is coming from one small area of this lineup. Yet they are, 12 games over 500 and in the wild card race? If the playoffs started today, they would be in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. And that's why, in the previous segment, I talked about how the Royals are banking on, and it's not. I don't think it's out of the question that a couple of those guys that are underperforming, it's just common sense tells you they're going to be better in the second half.
How can they not?
Right. I mean, look how hot Vinny is right now. And Vinny is. I don't think anyone's all. Vinny's lived up to expectations, but all of a sudden he's going to get so hot. He's. I got to see what he's on pace. Well over 100 ribbies. I think the final numbers. Oh yeah, that's what I expected, because he's getting there. I feel like I felt like this like a couple of Michael Garcia is just like on the cusp of getting hot and figuring things out. I hope. I mean, Michael Massey. I mean, there's young guys with upside that it's possible.
Plus, Mike Boddicker will talk about the concentration level of pitchers is not the same throughout a starting pitcher's, say, 5 or 6 innings. I think there's going to be some point here where there's a little letdown because the concentration level that they've got to have when Bobby Witt comes up and then Vinny and then Salvi.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in a dugout and you think they're coming up this next inning, I mean, your concentration level is off the charts because every pitch has to be so perfect. They're willing to walk Bobby. But then he's so fast that anything that happens, he could score. So now, aren't they going to let down just a little bit and think, oh, this is no big deal. I'm going to get 7, 8, and 9, 6, 7, 8 this inning. And those guys should see some pitches that, and plus the momentum of them winning. I just can't believe that their hitting averages are as low as they are.
I think
they
so.
should come back to the mean.
Right.
They should come back to being at least poor major league hitters, not awful.
Vinny Pasquantino's on pace for 112 ribbies. Does it feel like that? I mean, it does right now because he's hot. But I mean, I don't think
he's done decent work all year long.
Right.
And then we got 2 catchers functioning at a high level. That's pretty amazing.
Oh, look,
you got to give him a ton of credit.
Freddie Fermin's been fantastic.
He's
offensively.
been fantastic.
Good God! I mean, you can't take him out of the lineup right now.
Yeah, so I don't want to push him in with the whole group. He deserves to be thought of up in the Vinny level. Best supporting actors with the 2 big boys.
Well, and
2 guys that might be Hall of Famers.
As bad as Renfroe was at the beginning of the year, I mean, he just looked awful. I mean, he's really turned it around.
Yeah.
Had another hit last night. Batting average up to 236 now. But, I mean, he was well below 200 for the first month of the season.
This is a very important week and week or two since the All-Star game when everyone was so proud, I think, to see Bobby Witt Jr. do what he did in the home run derby, right? Don't you think Kansas City's chests pumped out a little bit? And then the whole nation saw who this guy was, and then he's been super hot ever since then. But it's so important to continue that this week because guess what? I see you said in my big red era. Right,
I'm in my big red era.
That's your T-shirt that you have on right in front of me.
That's right.
Chiefs play football next week. And you got the best team in football, 2 Super Bowl champions in a row. It's going to be hard to get any attention on the Royals unless they do what they're doing right now. Then there's room for at least the month of August to be talking a lot about the Royals. So they need to keep this great run that they've got going. The way they played yesterday was amazing because, 8 great innings of pitching and scoring runs in the same game. And how exciting does that get you for the 4th win? And to do it against someone other than the White Sox gives people a level of enthusiasm. So I just think it's very important that the the Royals stay in the wild card race, and the Royals stay front and center in our minds, Stephen, because it's going to be hard.
Well, they're staying in the wild card race, and that's partly also because look, Minnesota did nothing. Buster's usually pretty positive. He was critical of the Twins. And I liked it because the Twins did nothing. And if you were a Twins fan,
in trade deadline, you mean?
Yeah, they did nothing. They did nothing, and he said that they just financially they're not willing to take on any money, and he said that's why when some players are being placed on waivers here towards the end of the month, you can cross the Twins off. They're not going to, but the Royals might, and the Royals have the ability to there's plenty of teams that are ahead of the Royals in the waiver claims, but the Royals are ahead of Cleveland and the Yankees and the Orioles, and the Royals can kind of be gatekeepers because they're on that edge that they are true contenders, and they're ahead of some of the other teams that they're chasing. And so
they make a waiver claim to block others from making such waiver claims.
But also to add talent. They have a chance here to do that. And that he said the Twins, because the Twins are right there with the Royals, the Twins won't because they don't want to get stuck with any money. And he thinks the Royals will. And that's the other point about this. You talk about how important it is to be able to stay relevant right now and stay hot at this time when the Chiefs are getting ready to take. Here comes the red wave, right? That's why it was so important for J.J. Piccolo to go out there and trade for a fifth starter, to trade for 2 bullpen arms, to add some bench power, because he showed Royals fans, hey, we're trying here. We're going for this thing. We spent money in the offseason. We signed Bobby Witt Jr. to extension, and we went out and got 2 bullpen arms. We gave up a handful of prospects. We're going for this thing. That tells the team that the front office and ownership believes in them. Hey, we think you can get to the playoffs. Here's a couple of power arms in the bullpen. Here's another fifth starter. Here's a veteran bat off the bench. And it delivers the same message to the Royals. As pissed off as Twins fans should be, Royals fans say, you know what? Thank you. Thanks for going out and trying to maximize the opportunity here.
And the number one thing you said with all those positives, many smoothly stated, Bobby Witt Jr. is signed. Are you kidding me?
Nope.
Just like Patrick Mahomes is signed. How long is Bobby Witt signed through?
Forever, as far as my mind.
I don't know how long his contract is, but
there's some outs and opt-outs and things like that. But
so
to me,
he could opt out.
To me, it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
But I just
I think the Royals should do. They did a great job of signing him at a low price compared to what he's worth right now. Obviously, I think they ought to, in good faith and smart business, not just in good faith, but in good faith and smart business, talk to his representation in the offseason and extend his contract and up it and say, whatever you were supposed to be paid in 2025, we're going to increase that because you're playing at that level and get a little extension from it, even if it's one more year.
Well, it was an 11-year extension, but I think he has an out after 2030.
JJ has told me and told a group of reporters too that they have they'll do that when the time comes. They know that.
Well, good, but I'm saying even the time is now.
Yeah, well.
Whatever the effective out is, he's got to go.
2031 is the year he can get out. He's got
play in 31 or be out in 31.
His player option is available in 2031, so he's got 7 years. And the total contract's 11, and then there's
he's going to be a Royal no matter what for that length of time.
There's club options like on his contract. He's not an unrestricted free agent until 2038, but there are player options and club options between 2031 and 2037.
Well, I'm just saying you move the player options back and get another year and give him more money. Make him feel like you're not only valued as someone the fans love, but your market value is being rewarded here.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a guy who's really worried about that.
No, I know he doesn't have to be worried about that, but you can still pay him.
Yeah, but I think he'd probably, take that money and make this team better.
28 would have been his
salary cap, though.
Right.
28 would have been his first year of free agency, and so now the player option 2031, and so you ended up at the very least adding 3 more years. But it could keep going. And the other thing, too, is this. here we go again. The Mahomes factor. Patrick Mahomes has laid out the blueprint for being a superstar based in Kansas City. And Patrick Mahomes has also laid out the blueprint of showing you don't have to be the highest paid player, or even for Patrick Mahomes, a top 10 paid quarterback, when you can make a whole bunch of money on billboards and commercials. Can Bobby Wood Jr. is that kind of guy. And guess what? I've sat there and I played that sound. Jake played it the other day, my last day up at camp, when Patrick Mahomes was talking about Bobby Witt Jr. and talking about texting him after games and giving him advice.
Mahomes is a partial owner of the Royals.
Yeah, but just two Texas kids, sons of former pro athletes, living life in Kansas City. You think Mahomes could give him any advice about that?
Absolutely.
Or endorsements or anything? Hey, Bobby, I got a couple of ideas for you. Don't underestimate that. He's laying out the blueprint, you know.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And Travis Kelce's also shown that there's no limit to how you have worldwide notoriety.
Right. See, because I'm in my Big Red era.
Exactly. But I'll tell you, I worked with, during my career, back when billionaires were not as numerous as they are now. Seriously, billionaires. And I talked to those guys about their life. And it's a little bit like Patrick Mahomes. They don't want to be known. They'd rather have a quiet place. Guess what? Kansas City actually respects these guys. So they can live their life. Sure, people are going to say, hey, there's Patrick, there's Bobby Witt. But they may not come up and ruin your dinner every time. No. This is a great place to be, to live a normal life. And guess what these guys want? They have enough fame and money. That's not going to be a problem. But you do not have to be stopped everywhere you go with rude people, and Kansas City is going to do that. And then Patrick's going to be able to tell Bobby, this is a great place to be. You can live a life, have a family, and they'll respect your family and your private time. That isn't the way it is everywhere in the world. Have you heard the word paparazzi? I mean, Travis Kelce's learned a little bit about that because he's gone to the next level.
Bobby Baseball.
Junior.
Bobby Hit Jr. Baseball Mahomes. Patrick Baseball II. All of it. Back after this on WHB.